Chemtrail content. Look, the same church again. Chemtrails above it. This is Dane Wigginton with his sun panels that take 60% less sun power these days. And he speaks about particles being put up at these heights of 23 to 27 kilometers. And they spread out in a laminar pattern. And they take 2.5 to 4 years to fall back to Earth. And Bill Deagle says, one time he says barium is 10,000 times more toxic than lead, and at other times he has an even higher number. So I don't know which is which, but 10 times is enough for me. It's plainly too much. And aluminum is killing these ecosystems, as we know now since this morning. And then I found some different sources explaining what they have found in their testing of materials that come from chemtrails. And of course there's the barium and the chaff and the thorium and the cadmium and desiccated blood and plasma cells, mold, spores, yellow fungal mycotoxins. And there is one mycotoxin that has a link with Gulf War syndrome, and that is mycotoxin is Mycoplasma incognitus, and it's patented by the US government. I have the patent right there on my laptop. Polymer fibers and ethylene dibromide. And this is Glenn Boyle. He finds exotic strains of bacteria, conductive metals, blood cells, carbon powders, sedatives, nanoparticulates, crystalline substances, alumina particulates, barium powders, polyethylene silicon fibers, and modified molds again. And this is several authors who mention what they find. And these are the toxic limits. How much over the toxic limits tests in Phoenix showed what's in the air. Amazing. 28,000 times more iron, 64,000 more aluminum. These are crazy numbers. Toxic metals. And I go through the metals that I just mentioned, and you can read for yourself. I mean, somewhere this presentation will be recorded, so you don't try to write it down, because I'm not going to read it either, all of it, but just, if it's on DVD, just put the DVD on hold to read it. The important thing with aluminum is that it's an electroactive substance. That means that it changes the polarity in our cells and bodies, and there is a big danger, because amino acids and proteins will fold in a different way, so they will have a different effect in the body. And again, all these substances are on top of what is already in our system through vaccines and medications and this and that and the other, food. And I have the number of how much more it is apparent in the Phoenix air test. I put these numbers again with the metal. We have barium here. It gives breathing difficulties, blood pressure problems, kidney and heart damage, and there is a link with MS, multiple sclerosis. And it's 278 times above the limit. Cadmium gives a lot of awful things, but also reproductive failure and possibly infertility. And there is basically 3 things that I find all over the place when I'm researching vaccines or medicines or whatever, and they are trying to make us stupid, they are trying to make us sick, and they are trying to make us infertile. Those 3 things are always the things that I find. Nickel doesn't make you very happy either. 169 times above the limit. Chromium, very important in diabetes, in the blood sugar thing. but then in a different way, in a different sense than as a metal like this, of course. Thorium, breathing in a massive amount is lethal. And then we go to the non-metal toxins, ethylene dibromide. You get depression and collapse, or even death if you inhale too much of it. And again, damage to sperm cells in the testicles. And then we go to the mycotoxins of fungi and molds. And the most common ones are Aspergillus, Penicillium, and Fusarium. And they have estrogenic effects, and they can give you cancer, and they can change your genetic makeup. It's nice stuff. These molds and toxins give toxic syndromes in all mammals and humans. And an interesting point that Bill Deagle again made was that the H5N1 cases in China in 2007 were found exactly beneath the flight paths of British Airways jets. Interesting. This was a beautiful day. Air pollutants modifying human health. It's very dangerous stuff. Inhalation of some particulates can cause some genes to become reprogrammed, affecting the development and outcome of cancers. 85% of biowar research has been on mycobacteria and fungi, and they have also these particulates that they spread, these spores like that. Interesting drinking with this thing. The EPA says completely liquid aerosols or solids suspended in liquid mixtures. And then the American Cancer Society has this little picture, and in another scientific article I found that particles in the human body are worse than asbestos, worse than the people who got these lungs full of asbestos. And putting nanoparticulates in the upper atmosphere to geoengineer the climate means that you are creating ecological collapse, massive famine due to low harvest, damage to human beings and all forms of life, whether it's vertebrates, invertebrates, or amphibians. And there is nanoparticles in the brain, an article in Nature. Nanoparticles, tiny lumps of matter that could one day be used to build faster computer circuits and improve drug delivery systems, can travel to the brain after being inhaled. So now we know where they're going. And this is some of the literature, and the last one is a recent article from a study in China where there was people working in a workplace where nanoparticles were swarming around, and they fell ill, all of them. This is another illustration. I'll leave it for a while so everybody can wake up again. Chemtrail effects on humans. There is a worldwide scenario. It's all over the place, but it differs from place to place what exactly is going on. But we see heavy metal poisoning, sinus infections, pneumonia, immune deficiencies, cancer, effect in the mind. People report a metallic taste. Sometimes when I come home late at night and I step out of my car, I smell this smell, and it's between chemical and plain dirt, like the toilets here are smelling sort of now, because they broke down. But it's a very peculiar smell, and I recognize it anywhere. And sometimes even when I'm driving, I think, uh-oh, and then I can smell it because the air comes into my car. And yes, then we come to a very important thing, and that's Morgellons. And I'll talk more about that. Morgellons, chemtrails and Morgellons disease, are they a connection? Well, yes. Imagine having these things in your body. And these things are not of this world, in the sense that specifically that one is not a form of science that we can do. It's hundreds of years ahead of what we can do.